What's cracking, people? Anansi here, and welcome back to Dead or Alive Ultimate. In this one, we're going to be talking about the secret unlock character, Raidou, the final boss of the game, as you have seen multiple times in this series, where I go over each individual character and just talk about Dead or Alive in general. Now, as you probably noticed there, Raidou has next to his nameplate and in his character information stats, nothing is available about this character. I don't even have, in the manual, I don't even have a blurb to read out about him like I do with every other character. And I've pretty much gone over his gimmick, and I want to say either, if not Kasumi's, then maybe Zach's video, but Raidou's gimmick is that he is a combination of all the characters in the game. He's one of those amalgam characters. I believe I brought up when I made the comparison. I brought up the character of not Nightmare. It was a character from Soul Calibur 2, where it's like a giant eyeball in his torso, and I think I remembered his name. I think it was Inferno. It might have been Inferno. I don't remember. But you know, he's one of those characters that has the gimmick of being able to memorize or be able to utilize the move sets of other characters in the roster. For Mortal Kombat, and I should preface these two by saying that in later games they ended up making like gender specific characters. Like for instance, actually in the most recent Dead or Alive game, I think Dead or Alive 5 and Dead or Alive 6, they actually have two mimic characters in Dead or Alive 5 and 6. It's Raidou and Hanoka. She gets introduced in 5, even though her story doesn't begin until 6, so she's kind of retconned into the story in her later entry that she's not involved in. Either way, she has the ability to mimic all the female characters in the game, while still having some moves that are specific to her. Raidou's the same way, but is every male character with some moves specific to him, which I do appreciate. That you know that you can't just have a mimic character with like all like this repertoire of moves, and you're fighting against somebody, because then it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna then if I'm fighting this amalgam character, I just gotta kind of understand what move set my opponent's using, as opposed to just knowing every move set. So giving them some moves that are unique to them does make it more difficult to predict what's going to happen next with the character. Mortal Kombat had, I believe, the character of Meat was one of them, but he's more of a joke character. But the two specific ones that come to mind are the two chameleons. There's male chameleons spelled properly, and female chameleons spelled with a K and no H. And as you can probably infer, they mimic male and female characters respectively. I don't know the one for Tekken. That's on me, I'm not gonna lie. In Soul Calibur, I know I mentioned, I want to say Inferno was his name, but there's also 3 other characters who fill that slot in Soul Calibur 5. As far as I can tell, the black sheep of Soul Calibur, and for good reason. I played that game. While it is fun, there were some decisions made about that game that I'm just like, why? But yeah, no, I mean, they had, in Soul Calibur 5, they had 3. They had 3 characters that were mimic characters. There was Killick, a character who has been characterized in that game franchise up until Soul Calibur 5 as being the pole-arm wielder. Heck, in one state, in a stage that is specific to him, where you're on a raft floating through a cave. If you get to the tiebreaker round, and you're fighting Killick, and he's not using his bow staff move, you see his bow staff being held on this statuesque thing, and when you fight him, he's using his bow staff. The bow staff's not up there, which I thought was not into detail, but it just made no sense to make him that kind of character. Heck, he becomes the male mimic character, where he uses all the male moves. And the downside to that is, and this is why I think Soul Calibur did it terribly, is that with the male characters, it's random, as opposed to like Raidou and Hanoka and Chameleon, where you have access to all the moves at any given time. With Soul Calibur, it's random. So let's say you win a round with a Mitsurugi moveset, you'll then load into the next round with a Voldo moveset. And it's like, why? And it just makes no sense to me. And then you have Killick using his basic Killick's moveset, which is not his Killick moveset, it's the Shiba moveset, which is the new Killick of that game, which makes Killick be in that game. I'm like, why? And then we have Elysium, who is Sophitia, but Sophitia's, spoiler alert for Kingdom Hearts 5, Sophitia is dead, as is Cassandra, which royally pissed me off. But you have Sophitia, who's Elysium. Well, you have Elysium, who's pretending to be Sophitia, who's the bad guy of the game, who's Soul Calibur, and she has all the female movesets, and once again, it's random. And then we have the Master, who is a character who's actually been in Soul Calibur for a while, and basically he's the mimic character who can use every single moveset. So it's like, you have a character who can use every single moveset, and it is randomized. Once again, I should emphasize this. It is randomized if you use every moveset. At least if you use only the female character movesets, and Killick use only the male character movesets. Why would you have two characters that are half the moveset, and then the one character who has all the movesets? Makes sense to me. Anyway, bit of a tangent, done. Raidou. Raidou is basically that character inside the game franchise. And the funny part about this is, and this is one of the more brilliant aspects of Dead or Alive that once again shows that even if they don't emphasize a story, there's a great amount of world building in the series. In Dead or Alive 2, they actually explain away why Raidou is able to use every single character's moveset. Raidou was born with an uncanny ability to memorize and use any technique he witnesses once. I will grant that's very fantastical, but we have to remember that this is the same world Ninja Gaiden takes place in, where you fight giant statues of Buddha and the Statue of Liberty just because. Like, literally, I think Ninja Gaiden 2, you fight a statue of Buddha who just rises up out of nowhere. They never explain why you fight the Statue of Buddha, but you fight the Statue of Buddha, and then you fight the Statue of Liberty, and the only explanation they give to why you fight the Statue of Liberty is that she got hit with a bolt of lightning. It was a demonic bolt of lightning, but she hit with a bolt of lightning. That's how they explained it, so I'm willing to let this slide. But yeah, Raidou has the ability to learn and use any technique he sees once. That's why even though he's supposed to be getting to a story a little bit more, actually we'll get into that in a second here. But that's one of the reasons why. That's one of the reasons that is the catalyst for the Dead or Alive story. He came back to his clan to steal one of the most powerful techniques that's only bestowed to the leader of the clan, who was at the time his nephew, and he's pretty much beating everybody up, his nephew and his daughter, at the same time. You know, his daughter Ayane, and Hayate gets so ticked off, and yeah, Hayate, his nephew. He gets so pissed off that he uses the move on him, and Raidou sees him do it. And there's nothing in any particularly interesting, no like special hand gesture or anything, which you see Kasumi do in Ninja Gaiden 3. She actually does like a specific hand gesture and movement, and like kind of like Naruto's thing to do the Torn Sky Blast technique, which is where she finds a giant bolt of lightning out of the palm of her hand. Hayate doesn't do that. He just freaking does, like, pulls his hand back and jumps it out like he's doing like a freaking ki blast, and Raidou does it, and suddenly he can do the Torn Sky Blast. It's like, did you really have to come back for that? But yeah, no. Going into that, going further into that, Raidou's basic backstory is this: he's a bastard. He is the biggest bastard in the series, and he is a confirmed rapist. Yeah. Probably just got demonetized with that word right there, but but they show it off in like they show, well, they don't, I won't say they show it off. They don't. There's nothing like explicit, but it's heavily implied that he raped somebody, and we'll get into that in a second here. But we'll get into it right now, actually. So Raidou is Kasumi's uncle and Hayate's uncle. He's also the oldest. He also the older brother of their father, Shiden. And he was meant to be next in line for the Mugen Tenshin clan. This is what I have gathered from reading the wiki a lot and just playing through the games again. If they changed it recently, which they might have. I think at one point he was the younger brother. I don't really remember too much, but He was meant to succeed the clan, but because he was such a bastard, they said maybe we shouldn't entrust almighty power to this guy. So they gave it to his younger brother, who the two look nothing alike. I think Shiden's like much shorter and very much more thin compared to him right now. But either way, so they give it to him. They give control of the clan to Shiden, and Shiden and Ayame. Shiden marries a woman named Ayame, and they have two children. Hayate the oldest, and then Kasumi the youngest between the two. One day, and I think this is heavily implied to be like, I want to say like a month or two after Kasumi was born, because Ayane, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second here, but yeah, about like a month or so after Kasumi was born, Raidou busts into the head household, rapes Ayane, and she then becomes pregnant with his child Ayane. So, and in case you don't know who Ayane is, she's the purple-haired Kunoichi of the series. You see her in Ninja Gaiden. She plays a passive, usually the plot important passive role in Ninja Gaiden, but she's a supporting character in Ninja Gaiden. She's also the second protagonist of the series, and she is, as you can definitely imply, the youngest sister of Hayate and Kasumi, and their cousin. Yeah, that's how messed up. That's how messed up the background story is for the three main protagonists of Dead or Alive, you know. And as a result, Raidou, I think he runs away or he escapes to attention, because he was exiled before this. Okay, so no, yeah, my bad. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, he runs away after this incident because, you know, he kind of raped your brother's wife and had an illegitimate child. So if something were to happen to Hayate and Kasumi, technically speaking, Ayane would be the head of the clan. But as a result of this rape and conception, Ayane has a terrible upbringing. And, you know, when we get around to Dead or Alive 2 and her and playing as her, I'll get into a little bit of it then, because for a game series known for bouncing boobas and thick hips and thin waists, there's a surprising amount of dark stuff going on in the background of the series, you know. But yeah, Raidou did all that. He runs away, and then he comes back when like Ayane's like 13, 14, I want to say, to learn the Torn Sky Blast, because he wants that for himself. He gets it. Him and Hayate have a Dragon Ball-esque key energy blast battle where Raidou wins. The beam explodes, sends Hayate hurling against a tree, snaps his spine in half, puts him in a coma, and he can't get back on the walk. That leads into a plot point for Dead or Alive 2. So when we get on to Dead or Alive 2, I'll be sure to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it is in terms of the series, Raidou is the most consequential character of the entire series, because he also tips the organization Duotech off to the fact that his family has sired more children that could be used for their experiments. So that gets us into the main thrust of this. In Dead or Alive Dimensions, they retconned Raidou's abilities. He still has the ability to learn any move whatsoever by watching people. That's something he's innately born with. But after he gets done getting the Torn Sky Blast, he runs away again and hooks up with Duotech. He lives a cushy life, essentially. They don't really talk too much about what he did during that time. All we know is that in Dead or Alive Dimensions, he volunteered for an experiment called, I believe. Now this is my own headcanon here, but he volunteered for a prototype of what would eventually become Project Omega. And all this does is just enhance a user's abilities further. It's your basic super soldier program. Because Duotech at this time is interested in the bioweapons game, and they're trying to make a super soldier to sell to the highest bidder, independent contractor, that kind of thing. And he tips him off that my family does have I have like 2 nephews and a daughter, so you want to do something with that, feel free. So that leads to the whole thing later on in the series. This is much later, and I would say this like Dead or Alive 2 or 3. I want to say this is Dead or Alive 2, where that plot point comes into play. But as a result of what he did and the suffering that Raidou has essentially caused the entirety of the Mugen Tenshin and Ayane specifically, Kasumi takes it upon herself to leave the village, search him, hunt him down, and kill him. Which is technically in keeping with like ninja tradition, if you go by what Gaijin Goomba has to say, that if a ninja turns runaway, or Nukenin, I believe is the actual term for it, they will be hunted for the rest of their life. The weird thing about this is, even though this is like technically a law and whatnot that you will get hunted down, Kasumi then has a death mark put on her head for fleeing the village. It's like, your next in command is currently in a coma. Your follow-up after that went off to do essentially what she's supposed to do as a ninja and hunt down a rogue ninja before any of your secrets get out. Which, by the time they get around to doing it, it's way too late for that. It's like, why'd you... And then again, it's like, why did you wait till like 14 or 15? There's like 14 years you waited to do something about this guy, and you still didn't do anything about the guy. It's like... So there are some things about the Dead or Alive story that literally make no sense, that you have to kind of headcanon your way around. I remember in a fanfic I wrote, I pretty much had to bend over backwards to justify that plot point. which is like when you think about it, it's like a lot of these fighting game stories, they have so many plot holes in them that you generally have to headcanon / fanfic your way through it, which, let's be honest, that's all a headcanon is. A headcanon is just a nicer way of saying fanfiction, because fanfiction has such a negative connotation to it. And for good reason. Some of the things people write out there, my god. I'm no better. Well, I'll let history just decide that one for me. I really have no place to judge. But yeah, no, I mean, it's like Raidou is the most consequential character in the series, and thankfully, up until Dead or Alive 6, Raidou does not play a role inside this main series at all. Beyond Dead or Alive 1, he plays no role in the series. Really think about that. Think about every single fighting game that has a main villain, that has your initial setup villain. Mortal Kombat has Shao Kahn. Tekken had Heihachi. Soul Calibur had Nightmare. Street Fighter has M. Bison. And there's another one that I'm fairly familiar with, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. What is it? I'll remember after this recording. I know I will. But think about those games and the final boss of all those games. How many times does that final boss show up in the sequels? It's like once for every freaking sequel. No way, I take it back. I take Mortal Kombat back. Shao Kahn did not show up in the original game. I said Mortal Kombat 1, that was Shang Tsung. Shao Kahn showed up in 2, but Shang Tsung still shows up in the rest of the freaking games too, so technically I'm not wrong. It's just that Mortal Kombat has 2 who show up recurrently inside the game series. So it's like, what the heck, man? But yeah, for Dead or Alive, it's every single game has always been a different final boss. It's always been. Raidou does show up in Dead or Alive 5, but he's a DLC character. And they made him, and they brought him back as a freaking cyborg. Which, once again, this is Ninja Gaiden Universe 2. Cyborgs are a thing, okay? But, so it's not beyond a realm of possibility. But they had to bring him back as a cyborg, and a brainwashed or short-circuiting cyborg to do it. Because in Dead or Alive 5, he's DLC, that kind of stuff. Dead or Alive 6, he actually plays a role at the end of the game, okay? Small spoiler for that, but he is in Dead or Alive 6. He plays a small role in Dead or Alive 6. And I'll get to that when I get to Dead or Alive 6. But it's like, I just appreciate it that in all of these fighting games, Dead or Alive, the game that gets lampooned for over sexualizing female characters, and by the way, I'm standing on the screen for a little bit too long because I didn't know that I had broken my record right now. But the game that is known for sexualizing female characters, and the game with the volleyball side series, right? That this game, because of one character and one character only, has a much darker connotation to its story than arguably any other game out there. I won't comment on Tekken's. All I know is that there is like some demon blood thing going on in it, so I'll keep my comments about that one to the bare minimum. But think about every other fighting game, right? Mortal Kombat, otherworldly dimension, everyone gets their blood, guts, and whatnot ripped out. Soul Calibur 5, Soul Calibur in general, a demon sword promising infinite power, right? Freaking Street Fighter, you got a crazy dictator trying to take over the world. Raidou literally has the most human thing. He violated somebody in the worst way possible, and because he was such a greedy, selfish bastard, he sent an entire village and essentially 4 people's lives down the toilet because of how demented he is. And it's like, this is like, when you think about stuff like that, it's like you want to see Dead or Alive story get fleshed out a little bit more than what it is, because Dead or Alive has the potential to be one of the most engaging and thought-provoking narratives in gaming if it was done properly. And that's why I love it so much. Anyway, we'll get more into that the next time we revisit the Dead or Alive franchise. For now, this has been Dead or Alive Ultimate. I have been Anansi, and you have been awesome, and I will catch you later.